Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Women Serve 2. Today we have Taylor Ullom with us. She is a disabled U.S. Air Force veteran, the best force, founder and executive director of Heroes Encore, and a fierce advocate for trauma informed care. With over a decade of experience supporting veterans and first responders, she leads with lived experience, transparency, and a deep commitment to breaking the stigma around mental health. Taylor is also a proud military mom of three, including an active duty C 130 pilot and a former first responder. So, Taylor, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. It's so great to see you.
I'm so excited to talk about Heroes Encore because I know this is your new big project. But first, I want all the listeners to know about your military experience, why you joined, your journey, and then essentially how it did take you to founding Heroes Encore.
Great. Well, I actually love telling my story. It's tragic and wonderful all at the same time. My birth father was a Vietnam vet, and at the age of 25, coming back from the war, he succumbed to PTSD. He took his life. And so I was 3 years old, and nobody talked about these things. So I grew up not knowing my father. I grew up obsessed with guitar, but I was the only person obsessed with guitar and the only blonde, blue eyed in the family, but I didn't know why because I had zero memories of him. My mother remarried a couple years later to a Marine, and that's when my journey of moving every 3 years began and my life in the Corps. I always tell everybody I was raised in the Marine Corps, and only military brats can understand what that means. You are raised with core values, you are raised with rules, you are raised with discipline. And, we traveled all over. This lifestyle really spoke to me, especially my teenage years. We were in Okinawa, Japan. And that's a significant point in my life because that's where you don't want your daughter turning 16 on an island full of Marines. So I was grounded a lot, and that's when I learned to play guitar. But I say I learned to play guitar from drunk Marines, which is a true story. So I play like a drunk Marine. But I really felt proud of the service because even though I wasn't wearing the uniform everywhere we went, we were a military family. And so upon graduating high school, I knew I wanted to serve. I went to my parents and I said, "Hey, I'm ready. I'm signing up for the Marine Corps." And they're like, over my dead body. And so they're like, "You're too smart. You're going into the Air Force." And I was like, "The Air Force? What?" I didn't know anything about the Air Force. So in 1993, I went and I signed up for the Air Force. And I did that thing, that crazy, silly. You want some advice? Don't ever do this. Don't walk into a recruiter's office and say, "I'll do anything." Because I did. And I ended up in services, that career field, became a cook and, worked mortuary affairs and mobility and did a lot of different unique job skills. And then I was stationed at Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. I didn't know anything about that. Deployed to Italy for a little bit in Operation Deny Flight, and then came back and got married and started having kids. And in 99, moved to Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska, where they kept telling me, "Once you get on it, you don't get off it." I'm like, "That's so funny. I'm here for 3 years and moving." But I've been here since 1999. Oh,
Honestly, I'm from Nebraska, and
yeah.
that is a very true saying about off it. Once you're on it, you never get off it.
I never thought I would be like, "I live in Nebraska." But when people ask why I still live here, it is the community. And we are a very special community. And I adore that. So as long as I can travel, I will do that. But I was cross trained into education training management. And I learned a lot about just how to train people. I did a lot of documentation. I did train the trainers and stuff like that. So I had a 10-year stint. I developed really bad back problems and just, I'm trying so hard not to talk bad about the military. Didn't receive the care that I needed, And eventually it got to the point where I had to get out because I couldn't even like dress myself in the mornings. So I left the military after 10 years. I had three little ones. And so I decided to be a stay at home mom. And, I did some home daycare for a little bit. And during those years, I realized I would rather be at war than locked in a room with toddlers.
Yeah, honestly, like, I don't understand how
Toddlers don't play fair.
they don't, and they will argue everything. You'll give them a blue cup, but they wanted it in orange. And I give kudos to all people who are in childcare.
Yeah, well, and especially when you do it from home, you don't get a break, you don't get a reprieve, so it's very hard work. But after a few years, my children started getting into their high school years and stuff. In 2014, I lost my sister at 39 to an undiagnosed illness. Nobody could figure out what it was. From there, life just started to take really, really super hard. And I realized I needed to find something. I needed a place to plug in. And, I came across an organization that taught guitar lessons. And for 10 years, I served there um, with the healing power of music. And I built up a lot of connections and community support, local, nationally, and this really drove me to learn a lot about myself because in there I received a PTSD diagnosis in 2021. During my military career, I did deal with MST. I'm an MST survivor. So, for those that don't know, that's military sexual trauma. But it was one of those things where I thought I had dealt with it, you know. I thought I dealt with all my trauma. I was like, you're so busy in survival mode at that point when you're raising kids and stuff that you just feel like who's got time to process old things. But yeah, so when I came face to face with the diagnosis from my military service, I had a lot to figure out there. And that kind of sent me on my healing journey to Heroes Encore. I'm probably talking all over the place. I don't know if I'm, but I get excited about this, and I don't mean to skim over my service. My service was very important to me. I loved wearing the uniform. I loved serving my country. I always want to live near an Air Force base because even though I was resistant to that at first, I love the airplanes now. And my oldest is now a C-130 pilot in the Air Force as well. So, and I'm a grandmother of 4. So, well, soon to be 4. She's due any day now. So we're a military family through and through. And in 2021, I reached my breaking point, and this was a significant milestone for me because I mean, I was going through divorce. I'd lost my sister. I'd lost my mom. I dealt with suicide attempts close to me. And everything was happening so fast, I was not recovering. And nor did anybody say, you should go get therapy. Can you believe that? Like, nobody suggested going to get therapy. Looking back, I'm like, why did nobody say I should go get therapy? But but I broke. And there became a point where I found myself just laying on my bedroom floor and literally all I could do was breathe. I had lost 30 pounds. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't take care of myself. I hid from everybody. And I remember just thinking, like, I'm kind of done. I'm done. And I wanted out. I wanted out from the pain. But I sat there and I was thinking about my children. And I was like, is this how I want to leave them? Because having been the child growing up without that parent, who made that choice, it kind of came to me that my children had seen me at my worst and I wasn't prepared to go yet. I was like, when I go, I want them to have seen me live my best life because, we all know we can pass on trauma. I just made a commitment at that point that I was going to pass on healing. And so I began my healing out loud journey, as I call it. I developed a platform. I went on to Facebook Live and I let everybody see me in my crisis episode. And I just said, here it is. This is what it looks like. You would never know that I'm dealing with this because I would never let you. And I just was very raw and vulnerable in that moment because I just realized we have to educate people. So without meaning to, I guess I became a micro influencer, is what I'm told. I don't know what that means, but instead of being that person that shares like all the highlight reels in their life, I'm very vulnerable with my very bad days and my symptoms. And so there's videos on there of me tremoring, of me talking about OCD behaviors, of me talking about my EMDR therapy and what that is. And so in all of that, what you see is 2 people existing here. One is the traumatized veteran who has PTSD and is having trouble coping, and the other is this woman who gets on stage and has become a singer-songwriter and is performing guitar and going around the country, playing. And somewhere in there developed this idea of a nonprofit, another one, right? Heroes Encore. And that Encore is really special. That name sticks out to me a lot because I want people to see like, A, people want you around, your family wants you, and they want that next phase, that next chapter from your life, but we have to help you discover what that's going to be post service. And a lot of that is connecting to other resources and other communities and finding voices like yours and similar stories and, coping skills and what those look like. And so, yeah, that's how we came all the way from being a military brat to, hey, let's start a nonprofit. That's kind of the highlight reel.
No, I love that though, because you mentioned going live and talking about your raw emotions and your raw journey. And I've always been a person who's been an advocate for being transparent about it because one, it isn't talked a lot about. And especially you being a child of a Vietnam vet, like the Vietnam vets probably had some of the worst. I mean, PTSD wasn't even a thing, or it was a thing, but nobody really recognized it in World War II or Vietnam. I think more research started coming out when Vietnam was coming, but even then, a lot of people were like, "Well, why are you dealing with this?" And I actually just started a book, and I can't even think of the name right now, but it's talking about how it's a psychiatrist and he worked at the VA and he saw how all of these Vietnam vets, it was very hard for them to seek help because they felt that if they did get help or put on a medication that could help them, that their buddies' lives were in vain. And so when people deal with trauma, it actually does physiologically change your brain. And there's so many things that, we still need to learn about as far as, trauma, military sexual trauma, PTSD. And you just being so open about it, it allows people to know that they're not alone.
Right, and I think the book you're referring to is The Body Keeps the Score. Are you reading that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That is the book. Thank you.
That's like a
Yes.
Bible. I tell everybody about that book. Yeah, it's
Yeah, actually,
incredible.
so one of my physical therapy professors actually recommended the book, and I was like, okay. And I'm not even that far along, but it's like mind blowing. And yes, any type of trauma, I was like, yes, please read this book. It's already so good to like understanding it. But with your journey and being so open about it, how does that influence your mission for Heroes Encore? Like, how does that help with the trauma that others are dealing with?
For starters, makes people question the stigma, it makes people question the stereotype because everybody looks to me and they see this strong, funny leader, mom, she can do it all. And like I said, I would never let anybody see that part of me. I didn't even recognize that part of me. You know what I mean? I was just having a bad day or whatever. But this was like a bad day for 3 months straight. And educating myself through resources like you're talking about this book, The Body Keeps the Score. At this point in my life, what had happened was I had met enough veterans with PTSD that I was hearing my story, not realizing it, but I was saying to them, don't be ashamed, don't hide. Please reach out. Please call us. We love you. We want to connect with you. We want to help with you. And the second I fell into that pit, my brain didn't believe any of that for 1 second. But I was surrounded by all of these guitars, and they all represented something for me. They all represented the people that I had just served. And I had said, don't hide, don't be ashamed. And so, like, these words started coming back to me. It's not just your family you'd be letting down. It's not just your family that would hurt and miss you. You're a voice now. And by being vulnerable, what that does is it develops trust. People trust me when I talk about this is a good resource, this is a good book, and so, in our community, I think people are more likely to take advice from another veteran and another person that's been there than just your doctor being like, you know what you should do? You should do this. Not to mock doctors or diminish them, but especially if you're dealing with the VA, you kind of feel like nobody cares and they're not hearing you. So, to also have somebody advocate for resources outside of just medication, to talk about the impact on the family. Like people are listening to that. And, um, in the beginning, I never could imagine that I would be so vulnerable to tell these things about myself because I do wake up some mornings and wish it could all be erased, and I wish nobody knew these things about me, for fear that people could use that to hurt me, you know? But really, what has happened is the number of people who have contacted me and said, I needed to hear that today. I needed to know I wasn't alone. You've spoken something today that I had been questioning. People aren't berating themselves as much because they understand if somebody like me, as they view, I do not view myself in this capacity, but they view me as a strong, well put together person, you know, yeah, that can be you too. And that's where Heroes Encore comes into play, that two things can be true at once. I can have vulnerabilities, I can have weaknesses, I can be sick and I can have struggles, but I can also still give back to the community and be, a connection for my family and help them as well because life doesn't get easier. So through this, I hope to exemplify resiliency and grit and healing in ways that maybe we're missing. I don't know why we're missing it. Generation X was all about like, suck it up and press on. Your arm fell off. Too bad. Too bad. Keep going.
Walk it off.
Learn to clap with one hand. But again, that could be that Marine Corps life that I was growing up in too. But I just realized, I've got to find a way to get through these hard times and I've got to exemplify for my kids how to deal with hard times. And in that, I just came across this community of people who said, you've got something here. And I'm like, I don't even play guitar that well. So I don't know what you guys are talking about, but okay, I guess we're doing this. But I'm really grateful to have had the strength to share that story. It took a long time. And I'll be honest with you, I could not even acknowledge something as simple, not simple, but that I was an MST trauma survivor until a man had asked me one day. I connected with him through his nonprofit. I was kind of interviewing him in a similar way. And he goes, can I ask you a question? I said, sure. And he goes, are you an MST survivor? And like, I just felt like this air gets sucked out of the room. And I was like, yes. And that was the first time I had ever admitted to myself, let alone out loud or to another person, what had happened to me, you know? And, since then, and all the therapy that I've gone through and all my struggles with the VA, you always have the people write letters for you and this, that, and the other. And I've been in so much therapy, but I still will not approach certain topics. And recently, I had lost my benefits, and so I had to regain them, and to do that, I had to go to my therapist and say, "Can you write a letter for me and tell them really how screwed up I am?" She's like, "Yeah, but to do that, I need you to tell me." After 4 years, I need you to tell me, like, what's going on. So I, like, trauma dumped on my therapist, which I'm pretty sure she gets paid for, so I don't totally feel bad about that. But I went and I picked up my letter, and I always try not to read them, but I just glanced at it to see that she had all the proper headings and whatever, and I just saw the word kidnap, and I was like, "Wait, what?" And, like, that hit me like a brick because, again, I'm still processing things that happened decades ago, you know? And I don't say that to just drum up any trauma or anything, but I just want people to understand that it takes so long to heal and to process and to understand what it is we're coping with. That's where developing a community like Heroes Encore is important. We're pulling you in through a passion, through music, but through that, we're able to create. So one of the takeaways through all this struggle or learning and resources that I've learned is that to heal my trauma, I have to number one understand my vagus nerve and my central nervous system. PTSD to me is a fried nervous system. Period. And we have complex, which means it's been ongoing for a long time, and we have incidents where it could be a car accident or, you went through cancer or something like that. And not to say one is worse than the other. It's just in terms of dealing, you need to understand the complexity level of what you're coping with. My trauma is deep and goes through decades. So I know that it's ongoing. What I've learned is to understand how to heal that is to heal a trauma brain, you have to create a safe space. So I'm not sure I'm saying this correctly. We have to get into our creative brain. We have to get into our parasympathetic side of our brain. So using music here as an example, we're going to recreate a stressful environment for you. And this is what I educate my people on. Good stress is still stress, but to a dysregulated nervous system, it can't tell the difference. Good stress is still stress. That's what we're recreating in an environment of play. We have to play. We have to get into our creative brain and we have to put our bodies through a little bit of stress to retrain it how to feel safe again and to retrain it how to regulate it. And so I feel like that's where a lot of these programs and nonprofits fall short is that for people to really take hold of their healing journey, they need to understand what it is they're trying to heal. And I think when we go and we get these always within reach, okay? But when you go and you get a pill, like you're just focused on like, it's my brain. It's just my brain that needs to be healed. You know, my brain is offline or whatever. I don't know how people view that. But the truth is, we are a body of senses, and our whole body takes in a traumatic experience our eyes, our ears, our nose, smells, taste, everything. And so that is all trapped into this nervous system. And I get really excited about this because then we talk about neuroplasticity and how you can heal the brain. And so by learning a new skill, you know, that's what we're doing through Heroes Encore. It almost seems like too much because, you know, I keep referencing this and I haven't even talked about like what it, what it is yet. But our mission is to take our veterans, transitioning service members, and first responders. And again, we're Nebraska based, but our goal is to take them from peer to performer. This is a transformative journey through musical expression. So it's not even that it's instrument based, but we're going to use music as our creative environment to help you heal. So when I say from peer to performer, when I say performer, what I'm not intending, people will think, oh, I have to be on stage at the end of this and, you know, perform. But performer to me means, am I showing up as a parent? Am I showing up as a spouse? Am I advocating for my needs? Do I have a reason to wake up in the morning? That's what performer means to me because we have all left the military. We have leadership training, we have skill sets, we have abilities. But now the majority of us walk around as I'm disabled. I have another doctor, I have another pill, I have another surgery, you know. And so through this program, what we're able to do is to change that. And I only just came to this realization the other day. I started hearing that the greatest measurement of my program is when somebody's conversation goes from, I have another surgery, I have another pill, I have another, to I have a gig, I have a rehearsal, I'm writing a song, I'm collaborating. You know, when the focus changes off of, I'm sick, I'm broken, I'm disabled, to performing. I have something to look forward to. That was all based off not on my own journey, but the people I worked with over the past decade, and then reading books like The Body Keeps the Score. Because then you talk about why is guitar a good instrument? Well, this is an acoustic based wooden instrument. When you hold it against your body, the first thing I want you to think about is a soldier standing there holding a weapon. And how do they hold a weapon? Usually across
Mm,
their body, right? Take the weapon
interesting.
out
I never thought of that.
and put
Yeah.
a guitar in their hand, and immediately, I know immediately in the imprint of their brain, there's like a safety mechanism that locks in here. Now there's a barrier between me and you, and I feel a little bit safer. When you strum this guitar, it's pressed against your nervous system. It's pressed against your vagus nerve. It's pressed against your chest and your heart. And so that immediately is going to impact, you know, your heart rate. It's going to, your blood pressure. It's going to start releasing dopamine and feel good chemicals in your brain. So you'll often hear a guitar player say, I only meant to sit down and practice for 15 minutes and then 4 hours went by. That's that dopamine, you know, those feel good chemicals. It's hand eye coordination. It's bilateral stimulation, which when you get into things like EMDR and you learn about bilateral healing in your brain, why that's important. So there's a lot of things going on when you're strumming and playing this guitar. Just get into vibration and frequencies if people are understanding that. And again, this is all stuff I want people to learn. You know, why is vibration and frequency? How is that impacting me? And that's all healing. And then when you're doing two different things with your hands, you are highlighting multiple areas of your brain. So you can't stay in fight or flight when you start using both of your hands. And it'll be spoken more eloquently in your book as you read this. But another very interesting thing that they pointed out in there, and I think they used children as the example, kicking a ball back and forth. is a safety feeling that we get when we mirror somebody's behaviors. So when you're talking to somebody, body language experts will say, mirror the body language of the person in front of you. So if they cross your arms, you cross their arms or whatever. And it's the same thing with a kid kicking a ball back and forth. You're going to develop a trust, or their, fight or flight's going to kind of lower a little bit. I was like, "Oh my god, this is why guitar players work so well together, because you're sitting across from me and we're both doing the same thing." So, like, the threat that your body feels in an environment like that, like, decreases. I'm safe because we're doing the same thing. And so that's why I get stupid excited about guitars.
Is it just guitars, or you have a person kind of teach the veteran kind of how to play the guitar and
Right.
correct?
So, well, with Heroes Encore, we are a 9-month resiliency program. So I will start there. That our main focus isn't so much guitar playing, but it's the resiliency part. We're using music. So we offer up a guitar, bass, ukulele. If we have an instructor for it, we're going to make this work. Now, pianos and drums, we do have limited spaces. So right now, we're a little bit limited in terms of the instruments that we can provide. But what we're looking at is 12 weeks of a curriculum here. So everybody's learning the same thing, learning the same chords, learning the same strumming patterns, and learning the same beginner songs. That way, when we come together as a group, you don't feel so lost. We're all learning and playing the same thing. You know what to expect. Lessons learned from previous life was, if everybody's learning something different, then they feel lost. They feel insecure, especially as an adult and a veteran. You want to nail this stuff right. You're like, I got this to learn and I'm going to learn it. And when it doesn't come that fast, that's very frustrating, and people don't stick with it. So we do 12 weeks of one-on-one. When they come to us, we provide them the practice equipment. We provide them the curriculum. We provide them an instructor, and it's 1 hour a week. We work out of Bellevue University. We have a military veteran service center there that we've been partnered with forever. So we have a really safe environment that, by the way, is like a hub for all these other veteran services. So not only when you come to see us here, are you just seeing Heroes Encore, you're connected with all these other, DAV, VFWs, any other education services you might need. Whatever you need, we're here to help you. So after 12 weeks, they will graduate stage 1 and receive their own brand new equipment. So just using guitar as the example, they're going to receive a guitar, a gig bag, a guitar stand, a music stand, cable tuner, blah, 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 all the accessories. And then we move into stage 2. Stage 2 is now we're going to get into songwriting. We're going to get into industry related workshops. We're going to get into jam sessions. And what that means is we're going to start cultivating your story through writing. So we're going to do writing exercises, writing prompts, and we're going to try to cultivate your story into a song. And we will have songwriters come in and work with our students as well. And then with the industry related workshop side of the house, this is where you're going to learn, what does it mean to set up a guitar, and how does sound equipment work, and why is that important? Anything to do with sort of that kind of industry side of the house. How do you record music, and why is this important over that? So it'll be technical stuff to some extent. And then you go from being an individual one-on-one player to now playing in groups. So you're working with other musicians around you, other guitar players, and we meet weekly and monthly for those events. So weekly, everybody's coming in. There's like 15 guitar players. I personally cannot be in that room because my ADHD brain can't hear 15 different guitars played at once. But it works out great because I've watched them all work together. And it's almost better for peer to peer sit and work together on music than it is to have somebody like me that's come in for 30 years playing, trying to teach you. And then you're asking, like, how do you do that? And you're like, do what? I don't even know. It's all muscle memory at this point. So watching them work peer to peer has been so exciting because they just learn so much better in that sense. But after so we do 3 months of that. We now move into vocal training and live performance, mindset coaching. Now, here's the thing. To me, mindset is very, very important because this is where, going back to something I said earlier, good stress is still stress, and a dysregulated nervous system doesn't know the difference. I couldn't figure out why the things I love to do, I was suddenly so terrified to do. Traveling being an example. I love to travel. And I couldn't understand why I could book a vacation or whatever, and then I would freak out when it would come time for me to go on that, And so this is where I started to realize that even though it was good stress and I wanted it, it was still stress. And so, mindsets like that's important to recognize. And so, yeah, you're going to want to perform and play guitar, but when you come in here, you're already under stress. And I'll see that on day one of just meeting somebody, looking at their hands, and sometimes their hands are trembling, and they can't figure out why they're so nervous. I'm like, you're stressed. Yeah, you volunteered to be here, but it's still good stress. And so I just want to assure them right away that, like, we have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable right now until we can teach our body and our brain what safe stress feels like. And so we're going to do that by exposing you a little at a time to these stressful situations. So another mindset that we have is progress over perfection. Not perfect today, better tomorrow. If it's therapy, is not loud. That's my motto. The right mindset matters, and we really have to battle that when we have things like PTSD because that and anything to do with the brain and the mental health there, shame really plugs into that. We feel a lot of shame. So to be surrounded by people who say, play the wrong notes, sing off key, who cares? You're doing it. That's what we're doing now. So that's why, and that's built into this program as well. And then the finale will be, our gala and our performance. So we've just taken you from peer to performer. We've taught you an instrument. We've taught you how to write a song. We've taught you how to perform live. We've given you all the skills you're required. We've also plugged you into other programs, nonprofits that are in our community. We've brought in community care providers to talk about EMDR or, sound baths or trauma informed yoga. Like we're going to do courses and classes on that just so you can see that these are other options in your community for other ways to heal besides just with your guitar. It needs to be an arsenal. It needs to be a full on attack of how you're going to care for yourself. So we're going to talk about all of that. And then my ultimate goal is just to see our participant go up on stage and have their story of their transformation before everybody, how they started over here never knowing how to play guitar and how now they're over here performing, telling their story through their song. And then hopefully in that, we plan to incorporate the family as well. And we'll have family nights and family performances. Right now we do something called First Fridays. And the first Friday of the month, we go out to this coffee house. And this is where so many of our heroes are performing for the first time. And the first night that we did this, we had I don't think he's a Marine, Air Force veteran. Yeah, I think he's Air Force. And literally, I saw him start out in the hallway and he just had his guitar, but he was like way out in the hallway. He was like, no way am I doing this. But he kept creeping closer and closer. And by the end of the night, he was on that mic and he wouldn't get off. And he, just overcame that. And now he has signed up for every first Friday through the end of the year. And he just said, I just kept thinking about what you said. Good stress is still stress. And so he was able to overcome that anxiety that would have otherwise pushed him away and stopped him. But, mindset matters. And so that's not exactly my elevator pitch, but but when we're talking about all these things at once, my brain is so excited to hear other people reading The Body Keeps the Score because again, taking everything I learned from resources like that, and I have a whole library of books about brain and neuroplasticity and how we're healing these things, and I just want to further incorporate that knowledge into our program so other people understand that yes, medication is one aspect of it. You might need to take a medication, but that's not going to be the cure all end all. It's not going to fix everything. There's still a lot of post service identity stuff that we need to go through, post service acculturation. How do I blend back into my family? How do I find a community where I can fit in? And I can't really talk about what I dealt with when I went to Iraq or so there's a lot of ins and outs, and it'll be in some capacity an individual one-on-one experience, and then in another, it'll be like, yeah, we've all been through that. So hopefully, I mean, we're only 6 months into Heroes Encore. We're brand new in terms of this program, but I know time goes by really fast. I'm already looking forward to like 5 years down the road and seeing the impact that this has because back to that first Friday thing, that guy that inched closer the second first Friday we did, he had his wife up there performing with him. He goes, we sit out front at night and I play guitar and she sings. And I'm like, yes, this is what we want. like their kids were in the back, like, oh my God, so the kids aren't fully on board yet, but we'll get them there. We'll get them there.
Small steps.
Right, right. But I'm just really proud and thankful for the community that has supported me and stood me up as I've had to heal through all of this. And just when I think I'm on top of my PTSD and I don't have these problems, I've outserved them. I've read all the books. I'm cured. Boom, life hits, and I'm like, oh, I'm not so good right now, But I can share that and know that it's in a safe environment that I can share that. People are gonna hold me up in the same way I hold them up, and that's just how we keep going. It feels a lot like, when we talk about managing PTSD and mental health and things like that. It feels like choosing sobriety every day, and I've never dealt with addiction in that manner, but I know that when I wake up in the morning, I have to choose my mental health first and foremost over everything. And it just has to be an honest check in because if I wake up today and I don't have what it takes, then self care it is. And there's just no feeling, bad about that. Self care is it's a self
Yeah.
care day. And when I say that now, that means something to people. And they go, okay, good. What are you doing? What are you doing? And another thing that I did, you were like, I was scared I was going to have to talk. I know. I connected through the Military Influencer Conference last year with the Face to Fight Foundation. And this is Wounded Warrior Project, Elizabeth Dole Foundation, and USAA. They have come together and made the Face to Fight Foundation, and they do a lot of free training there. And I did something called the crisis response planning. And what this is for anybody that's working with a veteran or is a veteran that has PTSD, this is basically a crisis plan for what to do when I'm in crisis mode. And so I went and made one of those the other day. Even though I did the training last year, I just did it. So don't think of me as like I'm really on top of things because I'm not. But for my own family, I went through and I built one. And it's just like these are my indicators, these are my stressors. This is what you'll see me doing or hear me saying. And this is what it's indicating. And mostly to the core of this is I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe. So here's the ways that I can feel safe. And, so for example, some of my symptoms are like, I think I mentioned earlier, tremor. I'll tremor, but I'll tell you I'm cold. I'll be like, I'll be shaking and you're like, are you okay? I'm just cold. Well, it's 104 degrees outside. That's either a heat stroke or you're not okay, or OCD like behavior. I start freaking out that things aren't clean or in order or whatever. And I'm like looking back on life and I'm like, wow, I really had these behaviors for a long time. It just didn't make sense before, and that it was a sense of trying to regain control over my environment. So now, now we talk about, well, here's ways we can mitigate that. Number one, obviously medication, rest, a bath, go for a walk, music, call a friend. These are ways that I can regulate my nervous system. But also, here's the list of things not to do. In that space, don't touch me. I if I don't feel safe, then I can't be touched. I will freak out, knock before you come in. Doors are a trigger for me, so please knock. And in the beginning, it was really embarrassing to express those needs because I felt embarrassed by them. Don't grab my wrist, don't touch the top of my head, knock on my door, don't just burst into my I'm like,
Yeah.
that's really embarrassing. I don't, but those were my needs. And once people understood that, then they felt less rejected when I would snap at them if they did do those things because they understood, oh, she doesn't feel safe. And that's where I want to educate our families to have these conversations. What are your needs? What are your expectations? How can we help everybody understand that? Because we cannot cure the hero. We cannot cure a veteran and think that their family is okay. If the hero has PTSD, the whole family has PTSD. So we've got to find a way to heal everybody in this situation. And I know that communication and understanding what's happening is the best way to go about that because I've had so many family members come to me and say, I'm worried about my son. He's exhibiting these behaviors and I just want to tell him blah, blah, blah. I'm like, cool. None of that's going to work. You can't just do that. It's explained to families that, oh, I think this would be really good for my dad. I'm just going to tell him to call. Okay, well, just understand that asking him to call, making a phone call is stressful to a dysregulated nervous system. He might not be able to make the call, or you might have to wait 6 months till he can make the call. Because if you don't understand what that's like, then to you and your brain, He's just being obstinate. He's just being a jerk. He just doesn't wanna make the call. Like, it's that hard to make a phone call some days, you know? So, I don't know. That's just, a lot of rambling and throwing it all into one big bowl here for you of, like, what I've been trying to accomplish for the past decade, I guess. Lessons learned from my own life, like I said, since 2021. A lot of books that I've read and a lot of therapy that I've been in, and I'm just very thankful to have a platform to share that with other people.
No, I think that's a great idea, and I love the whole transformation aspect because the more I've also been going through again like PT school and understanding like chronic pain and stuff like that, you do have to retrain your brain. And I love that you're doing that with music and help healing the heroes that do have PTSD because there still is that stigma of PTSD and mental health and everyone experiences it different. So you could have went to a same event but have different experiences and people don't understand. Like my husband and one of the people that he deployed with, they dealt with this situation. The one guy had extreme PTSD and then my husband's like, I don't understand why it hit him so hard. So there is still those misconceptions and it does take some time to, like you said, regulate your nervous system. And it is a process to heal. So I love that it's like a whole transformation thing from like start to finish.
Again, yeah, it's about resiliency, helping people to become resilient again, and it's pretty incredible, but can I just nerd out a little bit too about this? When you talk about how 2 people can experience the same thing and have 2 different outcomes. I'm learning so much too about, like, ADHD and the autism spectrum and how so many of us are having these, like, late in life diagnoses and how much this PTSD and how does that overlap, and I'm like, I got all the things. I got, like, 4 different labels on me right now. Oh, this makes sense why my brain might hyperfixate and replay out this trauma over and over again. And somebody else might be able to experience it, process it, and move on. Like there's so much that we don't know about the brain and how people operate. Again, just educating others on the different types of resources that are out there that even though maybe we don't know, does this person have, they're on a spectrum of any type that is impacting their ability to process things or let's try trauma informed yoga, let's try EMDR, let's try sound bath, let's try kayaking or fishing or whatever. And in that process what we're looking for is self-discovery, self-reflections, people seeking out their own what's happening to me and let that unfold. And one of the things I really hope that people understand is like whatever it is you had to face and what you had to do when you were called to do it, you did with the knowledge that you had and the capabilities that you understood at that time. Like, don't ever go back and judge that period, because hindsight is 2020 and that can be brutal too. I should have done this, I should have done that, this, that, or the other. But definitely, like you said, we're looking for transformation and we're looking for resiliency and we're looking for people to have a reason to get up in the morning and to feel proud of what they see in the mirror. And hopefully it's not just, I'm just a broken, disabled vet now. I got nothing left to give. And I'm like, "Bull crap. If I have to, you're out here too. Let's go. We've got stuff to do." You know? You're still needed. Still needed.
You said that the people who join kind of go through the journey together, or like they're learning the same songs and stuff like that. So, how can someone join? Do you guys have like start dates every so often? What does that journey say if I was like, hey, Taylor, I want to be a part or I want to go through this transformation with Heroes Encore? What does that look like to sign up for?
Well, again, we're Nebraska based. So if you're in Nebraska, you can find us at heroesencore.org. And there's a contact form there that you can go and fill out. And in that contact form, there's a drop down arrow. So if you want to volunteer, you want to invite us out to an event, you need us to come play live, or you want to join as a participant, you can contact all of that through that page right there on our website. I've had a lot of people reach out and ask if we're going to go national. And I'm like, eventually. But, we're in our founding year. We're only 6 months in. And so right now we have 20 participants going through all at once. But that is not how I hope to do every year. Going forward, it will be, a couple at a time or as you come in, depending on the wait list, depending on the number of volunteer instructors that we have. Right now, we have a little bit of a wait list just because the funding is still being built up. We're still getting grants and all of that. It's about 1250 per participant to go through the 9-month program. So, we're looking for donors and sponsors. We're looking for volunteers. We need volunteer songwriters. We need volunteer vocal coaches. And you don't necessarily have to be in Nebraska, be a volunteer because there's a lot of online stuff that we can do. You can do songwriting online. So if you're not in Nebraska, but you still want to contribute in some way, we certainly would love that kind of support as well. Because again, our long term vision is that we do go national. Our long term vision is that we incorporate families. Our long term vision is that everybody heals together and that blesses our community and nation in the long run. So that's what we're looking for.
So, because I'm assuming you also do Zoom sessions. So could someone say, if me being in San Antonio am like, hey, can I learn guitar? Could you also do the sessions on Zoom? You're like, I hate that you asked that question.
Right now, again, we're in our founding year. So at this time, that's not a service that we're offering, but it is one down the road that we will definitely do. I think I don't know how that works in terms of where we need to have licenses to be able to operate in liability insurance and things like that. So that's all education on my end that we'll need to get to expand to that point. But I can anticipate within the next couple of years if funding falls into place that that is a service we'll definitely be able to offer. Now, having said that, we're not one to often say no. So if a hero called and they were like, I need help now, we'll figure out a way to make it work. Because the great thing about this community is everybody knows somebody. So the fact that you're in San Antonio and we all probably know like a million people, I'm like, I know some guitar players down there. Let me call somebody for you. That's what we do. It's about connection and community and support. And I've seen it a million times where I've seen friends here that have seen a veteran put out on the internet somewhere, I'm drunk and I need a ride. And my friend from here would call an Uber service in, Connecticut to get somebody home safely. Like that's what I love about military life and military community is we look out for each other. Um, I'm ex- I'm especially happy to be expanding into the first responder community. The more I've learned about that community, the more I definitely want to help lift them up and support that community as well. So, we're working as hard as we can to be able to reach everybody because if you see value in our program and you see that that's a place that you would thrive, then definitely we'll make that work. We'll find a way to make that work. But you said you had clinicals, so maybe now isn't a good time for you.
Actually, my husband wants to learn guitar, so that's what I was thinking.
Oh, okay. Good, good,
I know
good.
he even bought a guitar. He's like, I want to play, and I'm like, okay.
I mean, we can maybe talk on the side. I don't wanna make any promises. No, we definitely we still have some things evolving and developing as we grow this year. That's what's so great about the 20 people going through right now is this cohort of heroes is going to really help us fine tune what we are putting into place and then we will be able to replicate that nationwide because I do see great value in this program and I have a lot of people that have eyes on it and they're ready for it to go national. I'm like, "Oh my god." I'm like, I never thought I would stand up one locally, let alone the pressure to go national. But like I said, I've been advocating for a long time. 10 years is a long time. And to now build a program that speaks to the healing journey that I've been on makes me very proud because my children see it. This is going to be my legacy. My children have helped grow it. They've helped advocate for it, for the family side of it. And, at the end of the day, they're my reason for fighting. That's why I keep going. So we'll see where it all lands in the long run.
Well, so if you want to be a part or a volunteer, you're looking for donors, heroencore.org, correct?
Yes.
How else can people get a hold of you?
The email that you will wanna use is contact@heroesencore.org, and that's HEROSENCORE. We got heroes with an apostrophe S on our page, so that kinda throws people off a little bit, but yeah, you can reach us there. Also, we have social media, so you can find us on Facebook and Instagram and all of that, and, please, if there's anybody out there would love to take over my social media content, I would just love to have you because as much as I love doing
It
social
takes too
media.
much time.
Right. The
It
amount
is.
of time it takes to commit and keep that thing going is a whole job in itself, and so, I've gotta write newsletters, and I've got blogs, and I've got interviews, and so there's so much to it. Yeah, if you are nationwide and you wanna help build this up so we can go national, we would love that support. We would lo and it's just a couple hours a week, like, it's not, a full-time job. Guys, yeah, I would love more hands if you have the talent, skills, and ability to help us grow with the vision that we've placed out there for you. So reach out.
Love that. So, with that being said, as we're kind of wrapping up, what do you hope people take away from your story?
Well, like I said before, two things can be true at once. You can have your wounds and your scars and your regrets and all of that. But that doesn't define who you are. You still have a life to live. You still have a purpose. You still have a reason for being here. And an encore. You have an encore to give. Don't leave this world not giving it your best. So connect with your community, connect with a healing program, whatever that is. It might not be music, but if it's reading, writing, fishing, whatever, find a way to get creative and to get plugged into resources and just keep educating yourself and take it one day at a time. So hopefully that speaks to somebody out there trying to take it all on at once. And, always know that you can reach out to people like me if you're struggling and call 988 if you're ever in crisis. So keep going, keep going.